the moment my boss stopped beneath the mistletoe, the entire Christmas party went silent. He looked directly at me, adjusted his tie, and said the words I had secretly dreaded all evening, "You know the rules." Everyone around us laughed nervously, but nobody knew what those words really meant. Because 6 months earlier, I had promised myself I would never let my boss become the person who decided whether I felt worthy of love, respect, or happiness. 6 months before that Christmas party, I was barely holding my life together. I was 32, raising my 8-year-old daughter, Lily, alone, and working as an executive assistant at a fast-growing marketing company. My salary paid the rent, groceries, school expenses, and the endless little emergencies that came with being a single parent. There was never much left at the end of the month. I had learned how to smile while calculating bills in my head and how to say, "I'm fine," when I was anything but fine. My boss, Daniel Hayes, was 39, wealthy, intimidatingly calm, and known throughout the company for remembering everything. He knew who was late, who missed deadlines, who stayed after hours, and who needed a second chance. I had always kept my distance from him, even though there was something strangely gentle behind his serious expression. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the possibility that one small act can change someone's life, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your support helps stories like this reach people who may need them more than we realize. The first time Daniel noticed something was wrong with me, I was sitting alone in the office kitchen at nearly 8 at night. Lily had called earlier because she had a fever, but I couldn't leave until I finished preparing an important presentation for the next morning. I was staring at my phone, trying not to cry, when Daniel walked in. I quickly wiped my eyes and pretended to be reading an email. He didn't ask embarrassing questions. He simply placed a cup of tea beside me and told me to go home. I protested that the presentation wasn't finished, but he quietly explained that he had already reassigned the final slides. Then he added that no job was worth a parent missing a sick child's bedside. I thanked him and left before he could see the tears that returned to my eyes in the elevator. After that night, something changed. Not between us exactly, but inside me. I began noticing the small things Daniel did. He never humiliated employees for mistakes. When someone struggled, he privately offered help instead of publicly pointing fingers. Once, I discovered that he had quietly paid for a junior employee's emergency dental treatment through an anonymous company assistance fund. Another time, he stayed until midnight helping the cleaning staff repair a broken holiday display because the workers were embarrassed that they couldn't fix it. He was not the cold man everyone imagined. He was simply a man who had become very good at hiding his heart. Then, one rainy November evening, I found him sitting alone in his office long after everyone else had left. His laptop was open, but he wasn't working. On his desk was an old photograph of a woman and a little boy. I had never seen it before. When he realized I was standing there, he closed the frame gently. He told me the woman was his wife, Emma, and the boy was their son, Noah. They had died several years earlier in a highway accident during the week before Christmas. Suddenly, the strange sadness behind his eyes made sense. Daniel wasn't cold. He was grieving. That was the night our relationship changed from boss and employee into something more human. We never crossed professional boundaries, but we began talking. Sometimes it was about work. Sometimes it was about Lily's school. Sometimes it was about Christmas traditions we had lost. Daniel told me that after Emma and Noah died, he stopped decorating his house. He couldn't bear Christmas music. He couldn't walk through stores filled with ornaments without remembering the life he had lost. I understood because grief has a strange language. It makes two strangers recognize each other without saying much. As December approached, the company announced its annual Christmas party. Everyone was excited. There would be dinner, music, dancing, games, and the traditional mistletoe ceremony. I laughed when my coworkers mentioned it, but secretly I dreaded the evening. Office parties have a way of turning harmless jokes into uncomfortable moments, especially when your boss is involved. On the night of the party, the office looked completely different. White lights covered the walls, silver ornaments hung from the ceiling, and Christmas music filled the room. Lily was staying with my sister, so for once I didn't have to rush home. I wore a simple dark green dress I had bought on sale, fixed my hair, and tried to forget how tired I felt. For the first hour, everything was wonderful. People laughed. Daniel actually smiled. Someone convinced him to dance, and the entire room applauded when he awkwardly tried to follow the music. Then one of my co-workers announced the annual mistletoe tradition. Everyone began teasing one another. Couples kissed. Friends hugged. People laughed and shouted whenever someone accidentally walked beneath the decoration. I tried to stay near the dessert table. Then Daniel walked toward me. He stopped directly beneath the mistletoe. The laughter around us faded. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't read, then glanced upward at the green leaves above our heads. Finally, he looked back at me and said, "You know the rules." My heart dropped. For one terrible second, I thought he was about to embarrass me in front of everyone. I stepped backward, remembering every warning I had ever heard about workplace relationships, power differences, and rumors. I whispered that perhaps we should skip the tradition. But Daniel didn't move closer. Instead, he reached up, removed the mistletoe from above us, and placed it on the table. Then he looked around the room and said that there was another rule everyone had forgotten. No one should ever be pressured into affection, especially not because a tradition, a joke, or a position of authority made them feel they had no choice. The room became completely silent. Then he turned toward me and apologized. He explained that when he said, "You know the rules," he hadn't meant the mistletoe rule. He meant the rule he had made for himself months earlier: if he ever developed feelings for someone who worked directly for him, he would never use his position to act on them. My eyes filled with tears. He told everyone that starting that night, I would no longer report directly to him. He had already arranged for another executive to become my supervisor, and my salary and position would remain protected. He had done it because he respected me too much to let his feelings become a burden on my career. Then he quietly admitted that he had fallen in love with me. Not because I was beautiful in a green dress. Not because I made his lonely life feel less empty. He said he loved the woman who worked until midnight for her daughter, who smiled when she was exhausted, who kept going even when life gave her every reason to stop. He loved the kindness I showed people when nobody was watching. I couldn't speak. I only cried. Later that night, Daniel gave me a small wrapped box. Inside was a silver Christmas ornament shaped like a little house. He explained that Emma used to say a home wasn't a place. It was the people who made you feel safe enough to be yourself. He told me he wasn't asking me for an answer that night. He was simply giving me something he had learned through loss: love should never feel like an obligation. 3 months later, Daniel and I had our first real date. There was no office, no mistletoe, no audience, and no pressure. Just two people sitting across from each other in a small restaurant, talking about everything they had survived. Lily eventually met him, and somehow she was the one who broke the tension. She asked him if he knew how to make pancakes. Daniel admitted he didn't. Lily looked at me and said, with complete seriousness, that he clearly needed training. For the first time in years, our apartment sounded like laughter. Daniel never tried to replace Lily's father. He never tried to erase my past. He simply became another safe person in our lives. And slowly, the Christmas that had once represented Daniel's greatest loss became something new for both of us. A year later, we stood beneath the same mistletoe at the company's Christmas party. This time, there was no rule. No pressure. No audience demanding a romantic moment. Daniel simply held out his hand and waited. I took it. And when I looked into his eyes, I finally understood that the greatest love stories aren't always about finding someone who makes your heart race. Sometimes they're about finding someone who makes your heart feel safe. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your support may help this story reach someone who needs to believe that life can still surprise them with something beautiful. And before the story ends, I have one special request: comment, "Love deserves respect," if you believe real love should never come with pressure, fear, or obligation. Because sometimes, the person standing beneath the mistletoe isn't waiting for a kiss.